Hi, guys, and welcome back. So, this is episode 3 of Future Diaries, MBTI and Enneagram typing. Just to recap, I should have mentioned in episode 1 that Deus is obviously an INTJ. I think I did because he's the god of time. So, time in a very linear sense. So, INTJs are the ones who think the most about time. They think about time in a very linear sense, like present, past, and future, whereas NE users, so ENTPs, ENFPs, think about multiple possibilities. So think about multiple dimensions. And you could argue that the show is set up to have multiple dimensions in the sense that if someone does change a decision, like they don't do what the diary says, they're changing the timeline, which is true, but it's a very narrow scope of what time is, because if I was to depict an ENTP god the way Deus is depicted, it would be more of a god of multiple dimensions, right? So dimensions where anything is possible. So a dimension where there are aliens, where there are robots, like the same characters are aliens or robots or kittens or food, right? That's more of the NE aspect. So in other words, the NI view of time does factor in alternate dimensions, but it's still anchored to one core reality. That, and he's very outspoken, not really outspoken, very articulate, as well as being very um not very dictatorial. Like, he's kind of joking around and entertaining Yuko in the first, I mean Yuki, sorry, the guy, the boy, he entertains Yuki in episode 1. So he's not really an authoritarian or dictator, so an extroverted judging function would not be his dominant function. So moving on, in episode 3, we didn't really see that much. We just got introduced to Yomotsu Hirasaga, who is number 12, right? I do remember a bit about him, right? But from what we've seen, it's not enough to type him. And we are slowly starting to get a better idea of who Kiego Kurusu is, number 4, right? Not Enneagram 4, but number 4, the detective diary user. We're slowly starting to get a better idea of who he is. And yes, he does give off ISTP vibes, either ENTP or ISTP. But as I said, ESTP would be he'd kind of be a bit more intense, but ISTPs are known for having this sort of level-headed coolness about them, like John McClane, Rambo, Wolverine, Deathstroke, the Terminator. They're known for having this sort of level-headed badassery about them. Even Grey Buster from Fairy Tale. Uh, those are all good examples of ISTPs. So he does present as being a bit more level-headed. So you'd either be an ISTP or an ENTP. But I'm not sure we can really rule out ISTJ because there's nothing really that he's done that an ISTJ wouldn't do. I just think ISTP and ENTP are a bit more likely at this point. With as I said, she's a very complex character because literally she could be anything. She could literally be any type out of the feelers. And the reason I say that is for one type you associate her with, you have to explain why the other type couldn't be that one, right? or for any type you say that she is, there are other types that would explain half of her behavior. So what I mean is, let's go with what a personality database says. They say INFJ. So you could agree that, fine, she has this vision of being together with Yuki in the future, and she's relentlessly pursuing her vision. And the extroverted feeling, you could say that she does display her emotions easily. But what the INFJ part doesn't explain is the extroverted sensing. So how is she so in touch with her environment? And that's where you'd think of like possibly an ESFP or ISFP, right? And the reason you'd say that is because those are the people who are very in touch with their environment. So, for example, an ISFP could have that dominant introverted feeling. So they could still be one of the types that are deeply obsessed with another person, combined with extroverted sensing. So they would be aware of their environment, right? So that's what I'm saying. You could just as easily type her as an ISFP if you, instead of being an INFJ. Or maybe you could easily type her as an INFP, right? Because if you want to type her as an INFP, all you need to do is change the Enneagram, right? So for example, I could say that she's an INFP Enneagram 8. The wing doesn't really matter. She could be an 8 wing 7 or an 8 wing 9, maybe a bit more of a 7, right? And if you called her an INFP Enneagram 8, that would literally explain everything. That would explain how she's a dominant person, but at the same time, a very idealistic person. And I think an 8, it's easier for someone who's an 8 to be more in tune with their surroundings. And even take the, if we're saying the ISFP, for example, she could be a 4 wing 5 or a 6 wing 5, right? So that would explain the sort of clear line of thought that she has, the slightly logical part to her when it comes to the battle. So in other words, yes, I do see why some people are calling her INFJ. My thoughts is, I would say probably uh, you could say INFJ, but you could just as easily make the case um, for INFP Enneagram 8 as well. You could even make the case for ISFJ or ESFJ, because as long as they're a sensor, they would be more in tune with the world around them. So they would be make better combatants because they're able to key in on actual sensory data, right? So in other words, I don't necessarily disagree with the, excuse me, with the INFJ type. I just think it's not very clear cut. But if you want to think of her as INFJ, that's pretty cool. But I think there's a strong case for her being an INFP with an as an Enneagram 8 wing 7. I think there's a strong case as well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on episode 3.